Friends. Season 3 of Fox's breakout hit game show, The Floor, wrapped up this week. 100 contestants, including Jeopardy champions, reality TV stars, and a cult classic movie icon, battled it out for the grand prize of $250,000. Joining me to recap the final episode, share their strategies, and reflect on their experience are three floor friends from the finale. Welcome Andrew, David, and Tony to the show. Hello, everybody.
Hi there.
Hi,
Hi.
thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining. It's a pleasure. I know it's a busy week. I know the finale week, you all might have been traveling for watch parties or you had friends and family gathering, and I'm sure that you're kind of exhausted sharing that experience over this week's time, but we really appreciate you taking a moment out to share your experience with me. And also joining us is Brad Lowe from the Hopecast Network. He's been along for the ride this season as well, and he had some thoughts to share from the jump before he has to leave us. So Brad, let me give you the floor. You want anything to say or add before we get rolling?
I've got a lot. First off, David, you're one of my all-time favorite players. And Tony's up there too. But David, my wife does not watch The Floor. And she was watching it last night with me, and she said, that David guy is so nice. He is such a nice guy out there. He's so polite. You won my wife over, first off.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're one of my all-time faves. Tony, the engagement ring, the wedding battle, it was, I don't know. But I want to get to this, David and Andrew. One, International Foods has been played before on The Floor. Jacob let me know. Yeah, I looked it up. It has. Somebody had the category.
Somebody had the category, but it wasn't played before.
It was
because
never played?
Yeah, so the first season, there was no best of 3. So there was going to be a leftover category because the last one was just somebody's category and the other person's category. They just left it alone. So season 2 also, that was also going to be the tiebreaker category. They didn't do the tiebreaker, so it moved on to season 3. And that's how we have International Foods.
Okay, Tony, Andrew, David, really fast. All season, David, on this show, we've had contestants come on, and a few of them, not Tony, not Andrew, have bellyached about the fact that Brian sat and won $120,000 and didn't do anything, right? That's the claim. Mm-hmm. Again, we have another person in the corner in the same spot. I brought this up last season. The problem with The Floor, if you're on the corner, you got a really high chance to win this thing. I mean, it is increasing dramatically. David, you know that. You got stuck in a great area. But you dueled. Had you won this, man, you would have been the first winner to actually, in my opinion, earn it. Because you had to go like 5 duels, 6 duels. Keelan did 3. And this guy, what's his chef's name? What's his name? Steven. He had 2 duels coming into the championship.
But here's the thing, he had a coach. And his
oh
coach
my
was
gosh.
Right. His coach
oh
was right.
gosh.
No,
I go on the floor, David's going to be my coach.
We'll talk about the coach.
I'll say I was intimidated by boy bands. So, he people were saying I was intimidating, but for me, I didn't want any part of that. So,
I will say, statistically speaking, if you go back to the floor and you don't stay up, you are more likely to at least make it to the finale and win. So, I mean, it's right. It's true. It's not the most entertaining, but it's true.
I think it's difficult at this point. We've only got a sample size of 3 shows. I think to draw like major conclusions without a lot more representation and seeing how that shakes out, it's hard to just say when you show up. If you're
it's not necessarily like conclusions.
Episodes.
It's not necessarily major conclusions. It's just like statistics wise. Like you're not going to lose if you're on the floor. That's just it. You
can't lose if you're not dueling.
Yeah, you can't lose if you're not dueling. You can't lose
if you don't play.
So that's why, statistically speaking, if you play less, you're more likely to. Yeah.
It's just the corner theory. I mean.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to say at this point.
The corner or the edge.
Differently.
Corner of the edge, yeah.
Corner of the edge.
Chances you have for somebody to pick you. It makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, you're less vulnerable.
I will say that's why I like the idea of the wraparound floor.
I
So
know,
that way
I
there's
would
no
like that too.
edges. Or no,
I
like the
suspect
wraparound.
we will see that. I suspect we'll see that. I suspect we'll see inherited time boosts. I suspect we're going to see them rolling out new features each
I think
iteration to keep
For
it
me,
interesting.
the single feature that would make more aggressive play more common would be if you won 1,000
Yeah,
for
pay per
first
duel.
per duel.
2,000 for second, 3,000 for third, and so forth. And if their prize budget is set where it is, then take the 20,000 at the end and make it 10,000.
Yep,
And at least
and then
that way,
10,000 through the duels.
yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
100%.
I
And David has been saying this for months. When we got back to that hotel after we wrapped that finale, we were like, okay, they want us to play aggressive. You could kind of feel on stage when they were like going back to the floor. But we were like, no, we would be incentivized if there were those cash prizes
Absolutely.
per duel.
Yeah, per duel makes so
Yeah,
much more sense.
I 100% agree.
Incentivize and give us trap doors, Andrew. I want trap doors. When you lose, you fall through the trap door.
Yep.
Makes it entertaining. Or the new one, you trampoline out. Phew, woo,
Yep.
it's gone.
Yep.
David, here's where I really started liking you. I was like, man, David is a boss because you come in there, you're like, I won Jeopardy 19 times. Amazing. And you come in there and you have everyone wetting themselves when it's time. They're like, we got to get rid of European geography. We're scared of that. And then Lisa, this is where I started liking you because they huddled Lisa up.
Lisa, who's Lisa?
Is it Lisa? Yeah.
Wedding.
Yeah, Lisa and weddings. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were
Lisa-
talking to the person in the room. I was like, we don't have a Lisa
No,
tonight.
they huddled Lisa up, David, and they're like, "Oh, go! We're throwing you to the wolves." And they were so excited, Tony. They were excited. That wasn't them
That
going
was
up against
not
David.
what happened.
Lisa had
You
zero
are
shot
changing
against David.
history, Brad. You are changing history. That is not what happened. That was
I do
Lisa's
that,
decision.
David.
You got three
Changed
people
things
who
around.
were there.
I
That
They
changed
was,
can give you
that,
the real
was,
story.
that was Lisa's decision and her decision only, and it wasn't
I know.
her. It wasn't her being like, I kind of don't want to win anymore. Let me just play David, even though I don't know anything about European history. Her thing was like she was
She
around.
was on the show last week. Yeah, she got a
Yeah,
chance to explain.
Yeah, she was
her
around three
rationale.
And I
people
said
who
this to her last
knew.
Was she potentially thinking about doing authors? Because I mean, that was I know she said to me that geography wasn't her thing, but that still gave her authors as an option. Did she contemplate doing that?
Authors
And she-
wasn't an option at the time you were an option, David. It was you, Bodies of Water, and The Crown.
Or the crown, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying the crown, I think, was just cryptic enough to. I think Lisa posted somewhere about this more specifically, but it's like between
Yes.
the three categories, she felt evenly paced with who she was going to go for, so might as well go big.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, if I'm on the floor and Lisa's like, I want to take on David in European geography, I'm saying, go get him, girl, because you're gonna flush that category out for me because you're gonna lose. And I knew she had zero shot. I like Lisa, but that's your category. You're not coming in there not knowing European geography. And
No.
so nobody had a shot. So they were celebrating. Tony, you were celebrating the fact that category was flushed. You had to be. I would have been.
I
I
was.
think they were celebrating. I think they were celebrating Lisa. I think they were celebrating her moment. I think they got caught up also in the idea, as you would, that hey, this might make it a little easier going for the rest of us if David loses his original category. So I think it was just all happy feelings all around, and Lisa seemed perfectly thrilled with her decision. So I don't think anybody was feeling bad in that moment. I think it was a collective.
I was frankly more surprised.
I was
than,
sad
like,
with everything.
disappointed or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to keep the show the whole time, but I want to say a few more things. One, David, the reason I really liked you at this point is because I felt like everyone was against you.
Aw.
And I was like, you know what? I like Tony. I've been rooting for Tony. She knows it. But now I'm rooting for David too. I like David. If he wins this thing, Andrew, I wanted you to win at the end. I'm like, Andrew's coming on show. I want him to win this. And I felt like you getting international foods was the worst draw you could have got against a chef.
Yeah, that was bad luck.
Yeah.
That was not. I was like, once they say international foods, I'm like, Andrew's done, man. The chef's gonna win this thing. And one more thing, the best duel of the night was poetry.
Oh, hands down. That
I'm
was
not
so
even
good.
a poet, and Angie knows why I enjoyed that duel.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, no,
I've had-
Alex really wanted me to go against him in poetry. Like on the floor, he was like, "Tony, I really want you to do poetry with me." I'm like, "You want me to fail? You want me to look like an idiot in front of millions of
Such
people?
an
Like this is
ass.
ridiculous." Because when I was
Alex-
doing it, and when I was doing it at the watch party, I knew "Still I Rise" and a couple others, but like that was it. Like it was that was a
David
good duel.
David, can I say I love the flex from Alex? He's like, he might be a 19-time Jeopardy, but I'm a 3-time Jeopardy. I got 2. And I'm like, that's not even close to 19. David, one thing before I go. One, Alex, again, Tony, we've had this discussion about Alex. I like Alex, nice guy. I question his game move. I still question it. And Rob brought it up last night, and Alex said they're going to be talking about that for years to come. Had he not beaten that housewife category, David, we would talk about that for years to come as the most moronic move in floor history. We would. We'd
Maybe
be like,
wanted
why
his
would he?
moment in the sun. I don't know.
Yeah,
No,
he got his
I don't-
moment. He got it. But my man David took him down. And I tell you, I was excited. I was like, Alex.
Yeah, I disagree completely, but I mean,
I
I've
just
already
love
said,
picking
I've already
on you,
stated my
Tony.
case.
I
I
was
just,
like,
I, you know, I
think
stated my
if
case
is
already.
an addictive word.
huh?
If is an addictive word, we can play that all day.
If
I
some
still
buds,
think
candy,
it
and
gave us
nuts.
a great show. You know, Lisa changed the game, regardless of how you feel about her decision or what we want to project on her. Like, it's undeniable she changed the trajectory of how the season was going to go. And, like, it was so sad to see everyone go. You saw how stressed I was in the finale every single time. But it's, like, great matches, and I'm still so proud to, like, have been present to, like, see all of y'all play y'all's best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it
I
was
think
all-
that's the best thing about lasting so long is you get to see it play out and you kind of feel like you know more what happens. And that's a real gift, even if you don't end up,
Well,
you don't have to wonder for months, right? That
Well-
like what happened, you saw it happen. So
Well, Andrew, I'm so happy you made it to the finals. I was rooting for you to win that final one. David, you did great. Tony,
Thank you.
we love you here. I want to see more of you. Come on the network whenever you want. You're a big fan of mine, supposedly, until I start bashing Alex, and then you're not anymore. But hey, y'all have a great show.
Thanks,
thanks,
Brad.
Brad. Take
See
care.
ya.
Thanks for popping in.
So yeah, a few weeks ago we were having our predictions for who we might like to see in the end, and I always felt just based on some of the editing that we saw and knowing how production story tells, I suspected Alex, Andrew, or Steven in the finale. And as much as I wanted Tony to be in it, I just had a feeling that might not play out. Same with Laurel. So I was excited to see you on the podium in the end there, Andrew, battling out. That was cool. And we're going to get up to that in just a minute.
For sure. Thank
So
you so much.
I mentioned streamlining through Ted. I want to give Ted his due. He seems like a heck of a nice guy. He did have a great run. He just imploded in the crown as he seemed to predict from the beginning. There were moments where I felt a little bit like he could have maybe, I hate to say this because we all know what it's like under pressure, but maybe just riffed out some random royal things. He was trying when little Prince George came up and he's like, I don't know, one of the kids, Charles Edward Louis, he was rolling him off his tongue. I was a little surprised that wasn't more maybe general knowledge. America has had a love affair with the royals for decades, and they're on the cover of every major paparazzi magazine. I suspected that he might have known a few more that he didn't, but I also know that he wasn't standing by it for a while. He probably hadn't been prepping for it. And he had a fantastic run with Fortune 500, a fantastic run with Trees. So I want to make sure we give it up to Ted for going the distance there. But at the end of the day, Tony took care of that. That was also a very close duel. I think we had a lot of close duels in this finale, which is what made it fun to watch. Duels decided by, 5 seconds or less, and that was really fun. I think Tony, we lost her. She'll be right back, I'm sure. Because I do want to ask her about how close that was and how she felt, especially in the beginning when she misidentified King Charles as Prince Charles and seemed from the beginning to kind of lose her footing. And I felt for her because I was like, oh no, because she had such confidence. And then that little slip, it can really throw you off your game. So when she pops back in, we're going to ask her that. But in general, before she comes back in, let me just open the floor to David for a moment on the off chance that you need to leave early. I'm curious if you needed or wanted to share any thoughts about your experience on the show, about the portrayal of you. I honestly didn't see you as a villain. It just seemed easy for people to take some shots at you that way. I saw you as confident, not arrogant, and
No.
capable. Do you have any thoughts that you wanted to add about that, or set the record straight about anything?
Yeah, no hard feelings for Fox or anybody. I just had a great time. That said, it was a stressful time because coming in, I really wanted to be a factor in the final outcome of the game. Really wanted to win some money at least, but also I really didn't want to embarrass myself because I knew that they were going to play up the Jeopardy angle, that I was coming in as the one to beat, and if I didn't win, that was fine with me, but I didn't want to be one and done or otherwise, a non-factor after all that, because that really would have been a buzzkill. And when I was about to watch the show yesterday and saw the trailer saying David versus everybody, I just thought that was hysterical. So I don't mind that at all. I thought that was actually kind of funny. The only thing that, two things just to sort of set the record straight. The one thing is that I think some people on Reddit or whatever were saying, why is there a Jeopardy guy? Like, hasn't he won enough? Blah, 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 blah. The reality is that the show wanted a Jeopardy person, and originally it wasn't supposed to be me. It was supposed to be my friend Bob Harris, who's a wonderful guy. Read his book, Prisoner of Trebekistan. Fantastic memoir all about his time on Jeopardy. He won hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I know the name. Yeah.
And he was recovering from hip surgery and didn't feel up for making the trip to Ireland and standing around on the floor a lot. So he graciously gave me his slot. And so even while going through the casting process, I felt quite confident that I was going to make it through because I seemed to think that the floor had it just, a desire to see a Jeopardy person on it and see how it would do. And I think it certainly made for some interesting gameplay and a new angle for the show. But had it not been me, it would have been somebody else. So
well, we had Dan. So Dan was on our season. Also a game show veteran.
Yeah.
And he was on Jeopardy. And
I know
Tim,
Dan. Yep.
yeah, and Tim, a friend of mine from season 2, said that when they were doing some of their vetting and we had those large Zoom calls, I think there were 2 big Zoom calls with the therapist
Yes.
talking just about the psychological support that was available to us. And Tim and I both were being aware of names that were on the screen and people joining those Zoom calls. I mean, I was very much curious who was going to be on there and if I would recognize names or be able to find out more about my potential competitors. And Dan had seen you or something and said something like when he arrived, kind of like, okay, I guess he's going to be on the other show because he's like, they didn't put both of us on the same show. So I think you're right. I think they were looking for some depth, some factor, some way of the fact is you're a citizen. You are a player like any other player.
Yeah,
and I think
sure.
the idea
I
saying,
know. So
that
I
you
know
shouldn't be there
problem.
is silly.
Yeah, so I didn't feel like I was, taking my moment away from, somebody else by being on the show because, again, if it hadn't been me, it would have been some other Jeopardy vet. So that to me, felt good.
And let me ask you this: did you prep for this show any differently? Because it is a
very
different
much
show
so.
than Jeopardy. It's a different show than your bar trivia. It's a different kind of game show.
I pretty much didn't really. I didn't prep in my category at all, just because I've lived in Europe for 5 years and I run geography quiz tournaments for a living. So I mean, I think I was pretty good there. But I was very busy, in fact, running our international geography championships in Vienna, Austria, which is in Europe, last summer, right before the show.
Okay.
And so I really didn't have time to prep, and just figured that once I got to the floor, though, and found out where I was going to be in relation to the other players, then I would hit the books and hit the ground running with the prep. And then all week it was pretty much a cramathon for me. So I really took it seriously on the prep side, but only after I got there, because I just knew there were too many categories and too much of a chance that whatever I would study would just, kind of be random.
Yeah.
And in the event, there's nothing that I would have really done differently. And, I was there to, be a bit of a boss, I guess, but I, flat out told the camera crew at the end that they wanted me to talk a little smack, and I just said flat out, no, don't even try to do that. I'm not bad mouthing a single person here. That, I'm a serious competitor, but I don't want to say one bad word about anybody, because it was a great experience, and I'm all about serious competition, but we're all friends in the end. So.
Yeah, and you got a little money out of it. I mean, compared to other winnings. I mean, it could be a lot of money to another person, depending. I have a question about your wardrobe, because I thought your pocket square was super fly and you looked very sleek. And I'm wondering if that was your choice or if the lovely wardrobe crew decided to flare you up a little bit for the show.
So I got a little story here to tell. So one of the other goals I had as the week progressed was just surviving long enough for my suitcase to arrive. So they told us, to bring all these changes of clothes.
Right.
And I was coming in from Greece, where I had like 3 days of quick vacation, with a quick stopover in Dusseldorf in Germany. And I made it, but my suitcase did not. And it was on some low budget airline that shall remain nameless. And my suitcase did not, in fact, arrive until Wednesday evening, which is something like after episode 7 or 8.
Yes.
And I really didn't want to have to deal with, I'm heading back to the United States and my suitcase is only now arriving in Ireland. So my whole wardrobe was basically thrown together at the 11th hour by the talented costume crew.
Okay.
And they sewed the little pocket square into the jacket so it would stay in place. And so all credit to them on that. And in fact, the jacket itself was just off the costume rack. So I got my floor jacket as a souvenir.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, your pocket square really didn't shift much for the
No, it didn't.
season. So now I know the secret.
It wasn't even supposed to be a pocket square. It was just another shirt they had on the rack next to it. And somebody looked at the jacket and said, yeah, that looks a little empty. And then they took, their shears and just
awesome.
cut the square out of the shirt and sewed it right in. So
That's awesome. Well,
I do not have that fashion sense.
You looked dapper. It pulled together for you. So I'm glad they were able to work that out. So, Tony, you got cut off just a minute ago. We were just talking a bit about that duel with Ted.
Cool.
And I was opining on whether or not you felt stressed when you misidentified King Charles as Prince Charles from the beginning and had to stumble just ever so slightly to get into your rhythm. Did that throw you off? Because it was a rather close duel with Ted even guessing. It didn't go as lightning fast as some of your previous duels. Was that one of the reasons, or just stress, or can you walk us through that a little bit?
So once Ted inherited the crown, I knew that I was going to go against him. I actually wanted to go against Andrew in Endangered Animals. I knew it was going to be like, if I go against him, that's it, it's over. But when I got King Charles wrong, I was thinking, oh, maybe I just got the person wrong. And then when I realized I said Prince instead of King, I was like, whatever. But I mean, I beat him with the time boost. Yeah. I beat him with the time boost, which I didn't even remember until I rewatched the episode, or watched the episode. But yeah, I think it was a really strategic move on my end. Because from this point on, I didn't really have a strategy, and only if Ted said something like, "Oh yeah, I really know," like bluffed or something, I probably would have not gone for him. But I'm glad he did. My issue was the move that I made right after. But it is what it is.
Do you wish that you'd gone back with cosplay and waited for somebody to come at you? Were you super confident in cosplay, or did you feel more confident in weddings?
So at the time, I felt more confident in weddings. But my thing was when I was on stage, I had so much anxiety, and just about the fact that it was the unknown, and I didn't have any control in the game anymore. And I knew that if I went back to the floor, anybody could be randomized, anyone could challenge me. It could have been anything. And I knew that if I went against David, at least for the next duel, I knew what was happening. And it was the wrong move, because not only is David married, but I've never even been to a wedding before. So I don't know why. Looking back, I'm just but you can see the stress that I had on screen. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even think going back to the floor was an option. So, I mean, it is what it is.
So that makes sense. I get that. Did you have a sense at all prior to this last episode, and this is for David too and Andrew, did you have a sense of which category you wanted to take into the finale? For on a personal note, for example, I wanted to inherit Shakespeare. The reason I went back to the floor was rolling the dice that I would get challenged and inherit Shakespeare and hold on to it for the finale. Was there a category you felt you needed or wanted to have in the best 2 out of 3 duel? And was that just not cosplay? Were you okay losing that, or did you want to hang on to it, Tony?
I wanted to hang on to cosplay. I also wanted to do boy bands. And I think that, honestly, looking back, if I decided to challenge Steven in boy bands instead of challenging David, I think I could have won that duel. At the time, I studied it, not a lot, but I studied it pretty well to the point where I was like, I think I could do that. I didn't want endangered animals there. I didn't want poetry there. But I felt comfortable with that.
Okay. What about you, David? Did you, I mean, I think they gave you that lovely soliloquy, right? This monologue moment at the upstart of the episode with this, I'm very confident, I have general knowledge, I'm super fast. None of these people intimidate me really, which fair. Is there did you have a category you wanted to have?
Yeah, but it's more that I didn't want to have.
Okay.
And those categories were cosplay and boy bands. So okay. I can certainly content myself with knowing that now, having watched it, had I played either Andrew or Steven in the final, there is no way I would have won against either of you.
So because you didn't get to see it, right? I mean, you were eliminated
right.
before that.
Yeah,
so
they swept me off, and I hadn't seen
whisked
that
you away
last night. So, Andrew, you and I probably would have gone like toe to toe on international foods. I feel like that one I could hold my own in, but cosplay, forget it, and boy bands, forget it. So, I was able to play the categories I wanted as long as I could, and I'm very fortunate that I got to play some geography and history. Those are my sweet spots, and I had a lot of fun, in all my duels. But I have nothing, but like good vibes and good luck, that when I look back on it.
Well,
I'm gonna have to get going, but thank you, Angie, for having us on the pod.
Of course, I'm glad you made time. I know you're busy. This is like your Super Bowl week. I get it. So good luck to you. Good luck with the rest of the competition and the competitors. And
we got about 1,000 kids here this weekend
right.
For about 8 different national championships on the line. And
it's an exciting time for you. So I won't keep you any longer, and hopefully our paths cross again sometime. All right. Take care.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Bye, David.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah, I think both of you guys won in your original categories too, and I think that's one of the goals. Like David started by saying his goal was to represent well, to not embarrass himself, and I think for a lot of us, you just want to play with integrity, and you want to be somebody that you can be proud to see later. And if you got to win in your own category, all the better. So I think you guys did that, and you proved that you knew not only your category but were able to handle the others. So Andrew, I'm going to ask you a few questions here. First of all,
for sure,
you had a fun start, right? I mean, you had one of those things where you got to play early and often. Tony was the same way. Like, you had a couple of quick duels, you kind of made a moment. People saw you as a competitor, somebody who was, somebody that shouldn't contend with, willy-nilly, but to pay attention to him, which is why you were kind of my dark horse in the back. I expected to see you later, and I was glad to see that was the case. How did it feel waiting so long, recognizing that you built a little island for yourself back there, and that you might not really have to come up and fight until the end? Were you strategizing more than most, having all of that extra time? And Tony, you did mention, that in the end you were flustered because you just kind of weren't sure what your options were. Which is fair, because you can plan for something, but then the very next duel changes the map. It changes your options. So it's hard to think on your feet like that. And so, Andrew, tell me a little bit about your thought process.
For sure. I mean, going in, I guess, spoilers, I can say this now. My original thing I auditioned with was animation. And they were like, okay, cool, we're probably not going to do that. What's your next one? So I wanted to do exotic animals. I grew up going to zoos all the time. I was always the animal fact kid growing up. And so I was like, when I found out I didn't have that, I was a little heartbroken. I was like, okay, mythological creatures, still know a lot about that. That feels very in my wheelhouse and kind of adjacent. So if anything, I really wanted to hold on and somehow get my original category. Unfortunately, like the biggest sweetheart ended up having that category and being right next to me, and I was just like, okay, what happens happens. We ended up becoming study buddies, but we pretty much figured, like Tony said, the statistics of it was if we go up, if we can survive one and go back without a money incentive to keep playing, it was the safest
Yeah.
option to go back
Yeah.
because you essentially know you can get through at least like half the episodes
Yeah.
playing once. So
Yeah.
there was that initial
Yeah.
strategy of let's do that. Let's go back, buy ourselves time to study, buy ourselves time to kind of scope out the crowd. And by that second duel, we knew it was coming up soon. We knew that either I'm going to go against you or you're going to go against me. For a second, he was saying, I really think I can take on Anatomy. But I knew when the pressure was on and it was the split moment decision, that's why I'm kind of resigned to like, yep, we have to do this now. Me and Kevin had to duel because it made sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we'd both been studying puppets. I'd seen him doing it, and it's like you want to kind of incrementally gain area that you can manage.
Yes.
If you're not going for the whales, I still think it's an amazing strategy for the people that wanted to bite off exactly what they could chew and get out. They told us
Yeah.
in the beginning, if you get the 20,000, you're probably not making it to the finale.
Right.
They were
That's true.
someone. Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
that's true.
even hearing the producers say that, it's like, okay, cool. I am going to have to play it safe if I want to live.
And
And we all saw in that episode where, oh, sorry, I'll let you talk. Yeah,
oh no. I mean, I want to hear your. Please continue. I'll
for sure.
follow up.
No, you're so good. Thank you. I know I ramble, but when I went into that episode and I had just finished taking out Kevin, and I realized I had this little sequestered area. I was like, okay, Tony's done the hard work of getting a time boost, as has Megan. And a lot of people really thought Alex was way more knowledgeable in cosplay than he was. He was actually an alternate that was brought in. Of course, by late game, almost anybody can cram for whatever they have. But I was
Yes.
like, I'm going to use other people's bias and nerves to kind of insulate myself.
Smart.
Because I knew if I go big, I'd be touching a whale, and the risk, well, we saw the risks play out when you're touching the whale. I really thought I can probably make it to really late game if I just breathe, take it easy, study the course, as nice as it would be to sort of just blaze through and try to get that 20,000. I was like,
Yep.
I want to be here for late game. I want to be able to watch. And towards the end, I was proud just to have made it to the finale. So a lot
You
of my
should be
study
really
efforts.
proud. I mean, you should be
Oh,
proud. Tony's back. Good. I know we were having a
Yeah.
recording issue. First of all, you should be really
Sorry,
proud.
this is
Anybody who gets on the show should be proud. That in itself is a competitive process that people don't often understand, except for the rare few who may have been chosen or courted, if you will, to join the show. I mean, it's not easy, and it's not easy to be there and perform under pressure, under those kinds of conditions, and just making it staying like standing to stay standing for that whole time
Yeah.
is a feat. You know, to win is something else entirely. And I just the only thing I was going to add, and it was just to affirm your point about strategy. And obviously, you know, when you're on the edge or you have those natural borders, it insulates you because you're less vulnerable. We understand that. That's why I think statistically, the fewer points of vulnerability, the more likely you are to stay longer. It makes sense. If you're someone who isn't afforded the luxury of a corner or an edge piece from the jump, you have to create that. Right. And I think that's, and for folks listening who plan to maybe play sometime or want to play or maybe want to understand why somebody goes back after one versus somebody who stays and battles, you have to create some level of border, whether it is a mental border that other players have about you, like, oh crap, that person's intense, I can't go after them, or wow, they know more than I thought they knew, I better steer clear, or you get a time boost. Anything you think that can insulate you, especially if you're in a more vulnerable central position, that's a tactic. And if you have something like an edge, you can carve out a niche in different ways. And like you're saying, use what other people think of other players to your advantage as well. I mean, it's very much a mental game about managing that territory. And I think you did a great job of explaining, you know, your plan, and it worked very well for you. You know, you got there in the end. I
Yeah.
think
I
it was great.
I was not anticipating being in the final two. I knew that okay, my goal has been achieved of making it to the finale. I wanted to do well in all the categories. I wanted to play well on endangered animals. I wasn't intent on like the 250,000 by that point. I maybe should have set myself a little higher, but I still was like so having so much fun with like that upper 5 and 6 people where we had
Yeah.
really come together like, okay, how do we make this a fun show?
Yeah.
Steven sharing studying notes, us like coaching each other,
Yeah.
Megan kind of going back and forth on me and like drilling on cosplay, like some like terms like big three or like sakuga, just like genres, etc. Because we didn't know
Yeah.
exactly how it was going to be like approached.
So
We were
that,
all really coming together to make sure it was a highly competitive show, and we all did our best.
and
And
it
like,
was. I
I'm
mean, it was a
still,
very,
yeah,
very competitive finale. I want to ask. I have a little bone to pick with a few of the categories on
for
the
sure.
last episode, and I'm sure that you guys might share the same bias, especially seeing it replayed last night. Um, endangered species, endangered animals. I have to say, I think judging was very loosey goosey on that. It should have just been called
Hmm.
animals. Uh, there was no
Yeah,
need for specificity in ways that there had been in previous
I
seasons.
agree.
And were you prepared to were you prepared to say, like, for example, David could say whale, it's a blue whale. There's lots of kinds of whales, and so just saying wolf or just saying butterfly, there's lots of butterflies that aren't extinct, but that specific
Yeah.
butterfly is facing extinction. So my question to you is, did you prepare and have at the ready more specific answers and were surprised that you didn't need them? Or were you
Hmm.
thankful that it wasn't a requirement to get a correct answer from the judges?
I think what a question I wanted to ask David was if he could remember verbatim what the kind of micro rule set for the challenge was, because a lot of the duels will have some level of specificity or vagueness that they will make room for. For instance, it's all for me. It was a very much so a syllabic game when I was playing mythological creatures, and I saw the Yeti. I was like, oh, they want abominable snowman, but that's I could say it in 2 syllables, so I just spat
Yes.
out Yeti instead of the full
Yes.
thing. So going into the endangered one, I think it was endangered animals, but the caveat that they had in the original packet was we're going to do animals and we're going to do plants. So originally I had a very large data set to be studying.
Yes.
And I was like, I want to know my stuff because I was like, well, I might as well study trees at the same time if I'm going to be studying endangered plants. So I was really spreading myself much thinner than I needed. And David can probably correct me later, but I want to say they said something along the lines of, oh, say there's like a salamander. Like you would like next time we're gonna want fire-bellied newt, but if you like have that kind of
Yeah.
general species, like not species specific name, like Vulpes vulpes or something, but if you can
Right,
give
right.
us
Not like the genus, the
dog,
species, like the,
yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
fair.
They said, but if you
Wait,
do that, the next time a similar animal comes up, we're going to want like Malmut. You can't just say dog. So there was kind of into
yeah,
that one a built-in unspecificity that you could kind of do almost like once per, not
that
maybe
makes
like
sense.
genus.
Yeah,
So
I
once
do.
I heard that, I was like, no, sorry. Like I think a lot of people had a similar qualm about just like, oh, these seem like really vague answers, and it's like, yeah, I want to
Yeah.
save the syllables. I'm not gonna name like the specific type of like
Well, and that's not,
moth they're gonna show us.
by the way,
So.
that was not in any way meant as a critique of the players. Obviously, it's a critique of
Hmm.
inconsistent judging, which again is not
Oh
even
no, like
critiquing the judges. I want that to be clear, right? Judging is difficult. It's done in the moment. I'm sure they have a batch of things that are acceptable. They have to think quickly. The production moves on. They can't hem and haw and dissect every single answer, and I completely respect that. I just think that we had some issues in our season, like on Safari, for example, where one of our contestants was
hmm
held accountable for coming up with a much more specific name for an animal than even endangered species was. And I was curious if you had studied the more specific answers and were a little disappointed you couldn't
hmm
flex that knowledge, right? Because I would be a little pissy if I had all this at the ready and I didn't get a chance to really flex what I
hmm
knew. So that's what I was asking. So
So when I watched it back, I was just so laser focused on like what was in front of mine. Uh,
yes,
so in the moment, I was so grateful for those short answers. I think that really helped with my nerves. You saw that I was on the chopping block, and it was 3, 5 seconds that I managed
yes,
to come out
yes.
on
They
top.
were very
Uh,
close. Yeah.
I think if it wasn't for that stipulation and the way it calmed my nerves, I would not have made it. But I would have really loved to flex. When we watched it back, I said Aardwolf. I was like specifying like seabirds. And I was like, I knew one friend was going to critique me because we took a birding class together. It's like, why'd you
And that
not think it was
short-billed,
an albatross?
what was it, short-billed albatross or short-winged something like
Hmm.
that. Yeah, that
And
was
I was just
different.
like, in the moment I did panic. I was like, oh, I don't know if this is a certain something. Like, there's some gull species that I got mixed up on the beak, and in that moment,
Yeah,
I'm like, I need to pass. I need to
yeah,
pass
you got
because
gotta let it
the
go.
other meta of it is like, if you're taking 2 seconds to think, you need to pass because
Yeah,
it was so painful in other episodes where you see us in the crowd like whispering for
yeah.
people to pass,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
Like let it go, man.
yeah,
But it's hard, you're like, some of us, maybe you were raised like, don't quit, don't quit. And passing
hmm,
feels like you're quitting. It feels like you gave up, and you feel like you want to show that you know it, and you don't want to act like you
yeah.
don't know it. And that goes through your head. You kind of have to let that go for sure. It's so funny because Tony, you said that if you could have done it over, you might have taken Steven in boy bands, because you had
Yeah.
never been to a wedding, you aren't married, um, and I totally get that. But the boy band category, okay, what was with that monkeys image? Because was that a cosplay leftover? Because that was
Yeah.
not the freaking
I
monkeys.
think it's a biopic.
It was, yes,
Yeah.
but that's not the
Yeah.
monkeys, and there's no way that it's a copyrighted image. There's no way. I mean, the statute of limitations on copyright would have ran out anyway with it being the monkeys. I was
It's
personally offended
ridiculous.
because I love me some monkeys. I know all of them by name. I personally had a mega crush on Mickey Dolenz. I'm just going to put it out there. Everybody else liked Davy Jones. I was like, no, Mickey's the man. But no, I was like, these are fakers. What's up with that? And then honestly, that picture of Wham was also weird. It was weird.
Yes,
So
it was so
young.
weird. George Michael looked like a baby.
He looked
I
like a
was like, that's
baby,
Wham?
like a baby drag queen. And by
Hmm.
the way, what I want to say is I love my drag queens. I love me some good drag queens. It was like a bad drag, like there was weird makeup and it was like this completely taut babied face. I looked at it so hard, and the only reason I knew it was Wham was because it was that iconic pose of, him in the front and Andrew like right behind him. But if you look at his face, it was like airbrush makeup. It was bizarre. It was like AI generated. I did not like it. I'm just putting it out there. But the monkeys was offensive, and I was not a fan. Um, but New Kids on the Block, bro, like what happened there? That was an
I
interesting
was so
Bro, I
situation.
didn't know
specific
New
in my
Kids on the Block
studying.
either.
Like,
What?
I thought, okay, boy bands, we're gonna be doing a lot of K-pop, we're gonna be doing a lot of contemporary. I was thinking like things that I would see. I used to teach. I'm like any of the posters my students would have had on their walls in their dorms.
You guys
That's
are
what I'm
so
thinking, like
young.
boy band,
I forget how
right?
young you are. You're so cute and young.
And I was
Tony,
like,
what? You're 23. Andrew, how old are you?
just turned 29.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
fine. But I will say this.
I didn't
I'm going
know
to give you a
I
pass.
didn't know New Kids off the Block either. I'm gonna
But
be
O Town,
honest.
New Kids, Backstreet
I'm
Boys,
20.
NSYNC, 98 Degrees, like
I
they
got
are the
NSYNC.
OG boy bands. Actually, the Beatles. The Beatles are the OG boy band. But at the end of the day, the 90s,
Yeah.
the 80s and the 90s was the birth of the boy band. And New Kids on the Block are probably sitting pretty high on the top of that pile. So I was a little, I don't know, for folks in my generation, I'm just going to say we were like a little piece of us died in that
Hmm.
moment. We just couldn't believe it.
Oh
But
no,
I
I know my
forgive you.
parents were rolling their eyes because they were like, "You didn't study for that, did you?" I'm like, "No, I looked over the things I thought would be a little contemporary because I thought, okay, the odds of me having to go against boy bands pretty low." And I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
"Oh,
fair.
well,
That's
if you
fair.
see the apprehension in my face, I'm like, I
Yeah.
survived. I
Yeah.
survived David,
Yeah.
and I'm super proud of that. But also, ooh, I'm glad that he
Yeah.
also didn't know cosplay because we might have never had the tiebreaker."
There you go. That's really true. Now, Tony, how do you feel about boy band
Yeah.
in retrospect? Would you have done better in that than weddings?
At the watch party last night, I didn't do as well in boy bands, but I know that I was pretty studied up on boy bands, and I studied the right way. I would have studied a little bit more. I don't know if I would have beaten Steven. Steven knew his stuff. I was a little bit scared about him. I'm not even gonna lie.
He's kind of
But
my
cosplay, I was
generation
really mad about.
too. He's a little older. I think he
Yeah,
knew,
yeah,
knew those
yeah.
bands
He's a
better for
huge
that reason.
he's
Yeah.
a huge like Swifty. So like, and he's really
Hmm.
and so I know that he knows like modern music and then also like older music and stuff. So I knew that it was going to be difficult. Um, and a lot of boy bands kind of look the same to me,
No, I agree.
unfortunately.
They
So
do.
it was like,
They
oh
do.
gosh.
It's hard to differentiate.
Um,
I agree with that
and then
definitely.
I was worried about the eras. Like I was expecting New Edition up there. I wasn't sure if like Mindless Behavior would be up there or like I don't know, just like
Well,
random
and just
things here and there. But
yeah, and groups of boy, like
yeah,
groups of men. aren't necessarily the same as
Yeah.
boy bands, right? So that can
Right?
be
Yeah.
tricky too. You know,
Yeah.
like Foo Fighters
Yeah.
I had
aren't
the
a
joke
boy
of just
band.
saying, I was gonna say like Chainsmokers Pass, Chainsmokers Pass. I'm like, no, let's actually try to play. But
Yeah.
I ended up having a streak of passes anyways, and just, uh,
Well, I'll tell you this: a lot of I stay off of most social media before the podcast because I want actions and not informed by other people. But when
mm,
you're in WhatsApp groups with former contestants and everybody has an opinion, some people not affiliated with the show, but people like Brad and Jacob had said international foods, that was ridiculous, blah blah blah. Um, and that wasn't the argument Brad was making, but he did say, well, a chef got international foods. How crazy is that? It was a category decided way in advance, and it just so
yeah,
happened that that was his profession. But I think you put up a pretty good fight on that, and it might not have even gone to a tiebreaker, and it might have been a non-factor entirely. So there was no collusion, or production didn't skew it towards Steven. I mean, he got it just like anybody would have gotten it.
mm,
Did you
100%.
study that because we were told that that would be the tiebreaker category? Did you spend any time, or were you thinking, there's no way I'm going to make it that far? I'm not even going to bother. I know what I know, and that's it.
Yeah.
We had like one additional break because of just how some technical difficulties panned out, and I was like, I should probably brush up on this. And that was another one of the ones where the micro rule set threw me off immediately. Not that I would have known. I think only two of the ones he didn't know I would have known, but there was plenty that he knew that I would not have. I think I think I said like I was just telling Tony earlier, but the micro rule set they wanted like the more common name. So I was like, okay, what would the
Yeah.
American audience call this? And so I saw
Mm.
paella, and I'm like, oh, paella. But I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have tried to play the commonality layperson game, and that I didn't recover from that decision to try to play it safe in a way that wasn't safe at all. Now, Cacio e Pepe, I've heard the meme, I've heard the audio, I just didn't know it was that
Yeah.
visual. There's a
Yeah,
lot of foods and
I
food
still think
processes that yeah.
I still think it was competitive, and it was super fun to watch. I think at the end of the day, I would always ask you, as I heard people ask, in earlier seasons, if you would have done things differently. I think Tony alluded to the fact that she had some other options she didn't see in the moment, and in hindsight might have chosen a different direction. But in general, if you could go back at any of those moments throughout the show and make a different choice in terms of who to challenge, or to go back, or to go up, or to stay, or what have you, is there anything that hindsight 2020? I know if is a dangerous word, Andrew. I agree. I
Yeah.
live with that mantra. I'm glad you mentioned that. But
Hmm.
just speaking from a strategy perspective, anything you learned at the end of the day you wanted to share?
Uh, I think it would have cost me my opportunity to kind of have my new icebreaker of like two truths and a lie. I held my own against a Jeopardy champion. But when I had the option to choose to be sequestered behind cosplay or to keep playing, I had half a mind to take cosplay and then try to go for that 20,000. Once I saw authors played out, like, of course, on the floor, I was like, oh, I could have done that. When I
Yeah.
played again at home, I was a little slower, a little less studied. And I probably could have, maybe, who knows, gotten that smaller prize and gotten to dip out. Because it was, there was a big part of me that was like, okay, I know if I go home with nothing, it's nothing. But a little something is still something. So there was like a big moment of
Yeah.
indecision. I think they definitely trimmed down uh, my response because I think they give you an option to kind of walk yourself through each
Yes,
thing you would do and
they
why.
do. Yep.
But they made mine seem very neat and tidy and like poised, so I appreciate their
Yeah.
editing in that way. But I was a little more on the fence of like, do I cut my losses or do I stick around? And I ultimately chose to stick around, but I would have really loved to play Alex in cosplay. I knew uh, we were like on pretty equal footing. Me, Tony, or Alex in cosplay would have been like a dream to play.
Would have been
Because
fun.
Tony, you surprised me. I thought you were so much more confident in it. A lot of people thought I was going
I
to be more confident in
wasn't.
boy bands, and I let everybody think that because I was like, you know what? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I got it. Sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Don't worry about me.
I
Um,
I didn't realize how easy cosplay was gonna be.
It was
that
it
that
was
was
a
just
lot
it, and
like
I didn't realize.
Halloween costumes more,
I
wasn't it?
and I didn't
Yeah.
realize how intimidated David was with cosplay. I knew he didn't feel comfortable with it, but I didn't realize it was like that. Like it was his. Like he was staying away from it, and I know that was our plan at first, but I just, the decisions that showed on the floor. I was a lot more fleshed out because I was just like so nervous, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to do, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I will say this. I know that Andrew, you made a comment about like, I leave with nothing or I could leave with a little bit of something. I think anybody who's participated in this grand adventure leaves with a lot. Really good
Yes.
memories, really good feelings, really good stories, and amazing new connections with people that just understand and have your back and will always be connected by a very, I think, uncommon experience. And the three of us are connected by the experience of having won many duels and have no money.
Yeah.
So we're part of a special
yeah,
club.
yeah,
I'm a fan of
Yeah.
our
I want to
club.
shout out Ted as well. We
Yeah,
were
Ted, for
driving out
real.
to Temple Bar after the show, and I was like, I was like finally coming down. The adrenaline had finally dumped out of me, and I was like, okay, we're done. This is good. We can go hang out. And he's like, what do you mean we're done? It just started. And I was like, oh, that's a wonderful, optimistic way to think of it. But he was right. I was just telling Steven earlier today, I did not imagine that I would feel like I gained so much,
Yeah,
even though I didn't win. The maintaining of like the
yeah.
connections, the people that have been there throughout different like life moments. Some
in such a
contestants
short
have
time.
lost family members, have graduated, have had kids, and I'm still very plugged in and invested in this little WhatsApp group. And I'm like, I want all these people to
I
do well.
know.
I'm rooting
Yeah,
for all of
a
them.
year later, and
Yeah.
it's still a connection unlike anything else I've ever done. I
Hmm.
think it's just a really cool thing. And I want to ask you, Andrew, um, how are you doing in terms of your career? And you alluded on the show to having had some struggles, and that the animation community really came and supported you. Are you currently working in animation? Is there anything you'd like to talk about? Any projects you're a part of? We'll link to your Instagram, of course, on the
For
podcast.
sure.
But anything you wanted to just let us know is on your radar, and
Hey.
things we could do to support you and your work?
So y'all caught me on a wonderful month. Had you asked me this question 1 month
Yep.
ago, I would have gotten word that I just lost my biggest whale client as a marketing admin. So I've been doing a lot of graphic design, social media marketing, a lot of that area because really hard to fund a show right now, but really well, not really easy, but there's a big demand to sell things. And me being able to read people and incentives has just been a wonderful secondary set of skills to make sure I keep a roof over my head. So a month ago when I had lost that job, I kind of had this moment of just like, okay, this is bad. I'm really sad, but despair is futile. I still have this show happening. I want to like maintain enthusiasm, even though I know it's going to happen. And I was just applying to teaching positions again. I was applying to marketing ones. This one executive assistant role popped up, and they changed it halfway through the interview process. Well, half through the selection process of like, we're actually going to bump this up. This is going to be an assistant. We need someone that can take on more and be an executive administrator. Can I say like studio names on here, or are we like?
I don't see why not. I don't think we're in direct
Okay, cool,
competition with
cool.
anybody. So yeah.
No worries. I interviewed at Studio Smokescreen, this boutique animation studio, remote based, but a good amount of people here in LA and the New York area as well. And I was like, wait, I've heard of them. I saw them pop up in 2020. I saw them land some things in 2021, 2022, and I've been like keeping tabs on them, like, this can't be the same studio. And I checked this updated thing, thinking, okay, imposter syndrome. They bumped up the qualifications. It's not going to align. Uh, Ended up landing it. I found out. So today was my second full day of work there. Uh,
Congratulations, man. That's really
Super
awesome.
excited,
That's
and
awesome.
my gracias. It's
Congrats.
such a nice like way to kind of like people being there in my worry, in like my kind of like regret and like all the emotions and all the happiness, but also the wistful like joy that's still happening, and being able to tell them, no, 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 that this was filmed months ago. So much has happened since. I'm still able to make it through despite, and also I'm now due to losing that client, working one of my dream jobs at one of my favorite studios. And so it's
That's
like it's such a nice little bow
amazing.
to put on the experience of
Yes,
just
that's
like,
amazing.
ah,
Yeah, I'm super thrilled for you, man. That's wonderful news. That's wonderful. Tony, what do you got anything cool coming up? You got anything on your radar? Are you trying out for some new game shows? Are Are we waiting for Floor reunion, All Star redemption episodes? What are you thinking?
No, I mean, I'm just chilling now. I really hope they bring me back for All Stars. Let's hope. And I mean, it's just been an incredible opportunity. I will say, I was surprised about like my perception on the show because usually, I do trivia all the time, and like me and my team, we get like last place every single time. Um, this is not my usual perception, so it's just like it's very interesting to see like people to react to me in this sort of way, and like I had to try to play it up a little bit, and meeting new people, and it's literally been so crazy. I feel like it's so hard to explain like exactly the feeling of it. And after the finale, I had friends being like, "Oh, it's okay. Are you okay?" And I'm like, I'm more than okay. I posted a little clip of like this Glee video of like Leah Michelle crying, like being like, "Peace, peace." But it was like it was all in fun because I just think that video is so funny to me, and that's like how I felt in the moment. But like, I mean, I didn't cry or anything. I was just like, "Whoa, this is crazy. This is a crazy experience."
Well, and you've had a year,
yeah,
like you've had a year to process that reality, right? For friends and family experiencing it
yeah,
for the first time, it's very fresh, and it's it's nice when they reach out and they care, but you have a different perspective now. I think I'll close by saying that this was a really great season. I think that all three seasons have been fantastic in their own ways. I know recently Rob made a comment in Variety magazine about him seeing this as Fox's long-standing game show series. He'd love to see it, run the course of Survivor and just kind of reinvent itself in different ways, and to be on for years to come. And I'm hoping that's the case. I really enjoy the show. I enjoy recapping. I enjoy meeting other members of the Flormally. I know that episode or seasons 4 and 5 are currently in production, so I know we'll look forward to seeing season 4 premiere probably in September again this year. And until then, I guess we'll have to find something else to binge and watch and enjoy. But it was really a pleasure getting to know you both, Tony especially. We've had some really fun interactions. I'm going to come down to Nashville this summer and hopefully connect with you in real life. And Andrew,
Yay.
again, congrats on your job, man. That just warms
Thank
my
you.
heart because you seem like one of the most genuine, like pure souls out there. So when good things happen to good people,
he really is.
it's a good feeling. So you two both take care of
Thank you so
yourselves,
much.
and thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Look for season 4 to premiere later this year, and tune in to Reality Redux with Angie and friends as we continue to tackle reality TV. We're currently recapping Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and then we're moving on to Traders. So stay tuned for those adventures as well. Everybody, take care.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
Ooh, bye.
Hey, you're welcome. Hang on for 2 seconds. I'm going to stop this.